All right, everyone, get ready, because this deep dive, it takes us straight into, well, a cosmically bizarre world. We're talking about Jeff Apple, the man who, for some reason, decided Space Jesus 2 was his calling card.
It's a wild one.
You got that right. Honestly, after going through all the stuff you guys sent in, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all.
Well, what gets me right off the bat is how this Jeff Apple character, he just carves his own path, like somewhere between satire and sincerity, you know?
Yeah, like trying to put together a puzzle, but the pieces keep changing shape on you.
Exactly.
Like, is this guy for real?
Yeah.
I mean, one minute he's founding a space cult obsessed with Matthew McConaughey.
Can't make this stuff up.
The next he's brawling with Space Jesus himself. And not in like a spiritual way, but in an actual let's throw down kind of way, and in a cosmic pub, no less.
And let's not forget shall we say, the cherry on top of this cosmic sundae, a DIY spaceship.
Right.
Lovingly crafted, from what we can gather, from polystyrene, and purchased, wait for it, on eBay.
See, that's what gets me, the eBay part. It's like you're going to build a spaceship out of, what is that, packing peanuts, essentially.
Pretty much.
And you're going to buy it on eBay. I mean, that just screams commitment.
It does, even if it doesn't exactly scream aerodynamic.
Right. So for our listener who might be hearing about Jeff Apple for the first time, and honestly, I don't blame you if you are, let's rewind a bit. Before the Space Jesus 2 title, before the polystyrene spaceship, before all the cosmic chaos, Jeff Apple, believe it or not, he starts his career as a car sports journalist. We're talking 1973, the smell of gasoline, hot tires, far cry from interstellar travel.
A sharp turn from reality happens in December of that year.
Oh.
It's then that Jeff claims to have encountered, get this, something known as the alien Elohim.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that might throw a wrench into your career as a car enthusiast, the alien Elohim.
And wouldn't you know it, 2 years later, he establishes the International Applean Movement. It's like he went from 0 to 60 in a cosmic heartbeat.
Founding a movement before we even know what it stands for.
And this is where the picture gets a little blurry. This Applean movement, it seems to be the seed, the origin story, if you will, of his space cult. But trying to pin down what this cult is all about, well, it's like trying to nail jelly to a wall.
We've got mentions of a Jeff Line space cult, whispers of a Jeff Apple space UFO cult. It's all very hush-hush.
Elusive, just like the man himself.
And a tad contradictory, don't you think?
How so?
Well, we know this group, whatever they're calling themselves, are fixated on reaching the end of space-time to meet the Star Child, who, according to what we've gathered, is none other than, and I'm not making this up, Matthew McConaughey.
You have to wonder what McConaughey thinks about all of this, right?
Right.
Is he aware of his apparent Star Child status? Did Jeff ever try to get in touch?
Send him a fan letter, maybe.
Yeah.
Dear Mr. McConaughey, big fan of your work. Also, we believe you're the Star Child, destined to guide us to the end of space-time. Any thoughts?
It really speaks volumes about how Jeff blends, pop culture with this almost, dare I say, messianic complex.
Right. All right, everyone. Pile into the polystyrene spaceship. We're going to go meet the Star Child.
Speaking of which, let's unpack what might be driving Jeff here, because it seems to go beyond just a meet and greet with the Star Child, right?
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. His aspirations, they're grand. We're talking reaching space heaven, cloning himself, and this is a big one, purging the universe of all animals.
Okay, hold on a minute. Space heaven, Star Child, those are terms we are definitely going to need to unpack a bit further. But did you say purging the universe of all animals? That seems a bit harsh, even for someone aspiring to be Space Jesus 2, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's an interesting contradiction, especially when you consider the, let's call it, reverence his followers have for Laika, the Soviet space dog.
Okay, Laika, the space dog.
They see Laika as this cosmic pioneer, which kind of clashes with Jeff's self-proclaimed aversion to what he calls slobbering furballs.
So we've got some bizarre internal conflict within this cult. You've got the leader who apparently despises dogs, and then you've got the followers who are all about them, especially spacefaring canines. How does that even play out? Are there protests?
Can you imagine?
Seriously.
You've dedicated yourself to this group, poured your heart and soul, not to mention your life savings, probably from selling your limited edition Hot Wheels collection to build this spaceship made of, packing peanuts, and then your leader drops the bomb that he's not exactly a dog person. What do?
I'd ask for a refund on the polystyrene, but something tells me that's not how things went down in the International Applean Movement.
You'd be right.
So this aversion to dogs, it ever come to a head?
Oh, absolutely. There are accounts of some pretty heated cosmic council meetings, as they like to call them, with members, shall we say, barking their opinions at Jeff.
I bet. So what happened? How do you address that?
His solution: a cosmic treat party. Because, of course, the best way to address deeply held beliefs about the inherent value of all creatures, great and small, is with a few space snacks.
Classic Jeff.
Right.
Address the serious concern with a cosmic charcuterie board and call it a day. But, this whole dog dilemma, it really speaks volumes about his leadership style, or lack thereof, right?
Absolutely.
He's dismissive of their concerns, opting for those superficial gestures instead of actually, engaging with their concerns.
Precisely. He's more concerned with his own cosmic vision, a vision that, frankly, seems to leave little room for anyone or anything that doesn't fit his very particular and, let's be honest, somewhat contradictory worldview. And this, my friend, is where things escalate from the merely strange to the did we accidentally wander into a Douglas Adams novel?
Oh.
Like levels of bizarre. Remember Space Heaven?
Oh, right.
That's not just, a clever name Jeff came up with.
Yeah.
This is where things go from strange to, well, we'll hold my cosmic beverage.
Because every good story needs a healthy dose of space heaven, right?
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, what is this place? Is it like a celestial resort? Did they give you those little shampoo bottles?
You would think, right? With a name like Space Heaven, we'd be talking pearly gates, harps, the whole shebang. But what we've pieced together from all this, it paints a slightly different picture. Picture, if you will, a cosmic Weatherspoons.
Okay, you lost me. Weatherspoons. Like the British pub chain.
The one and only.
I did not see that coming.
Apparently, even in the vastness of space and time, one cannot escape the allure of, shall we say, discount pints and questionable carpet choices. And it's in this unlikely setting that Jeff Apple, space cult leader extraordinaire, comes face to face with, wait for it, the OG Space Jesus.
And it's not like, a profound meeting of the minds.
Right.
No philosophical debates about the meaning of existence, just a couple of dudes grabbing a pint at their local Space Weatherspoons.
Not quite. You see, it seems Space Jesus has some very strong opinions about breakfast.
Oh, really?
Toast, specifically. It's a point of contention.
Toast? You're kidding me. This whole cosmic showdown hinges on breakfast carbs.
I assure you, I am not. According to what we've gathered, it's Jeff's, shall we say, casual disregard for Space Jesus' toast-related boundaries that sets off this whole chain of events.
I have to ask, what do you even say to Space Jesus when he's on a rant about toast? And what happens? Does Jeff challenge him to a cosmic bake-off?
Well, the situation escalates, but not in the way that you might think. Remember those prototypes, the ones Jeff was working on with GP17 Senior and their collaboration? It seems to have resulted in a rather efficient cloning machine.
Naturally, because when you're building a space cult and arguing with deities about toast, a cloning machine is exactly what you need. Where do you even keep a cosmic cloning machine?
Well, the where is less important than the why. Mm-hmm. It seems Jeff keeps this thing handy, up in space heaven for emergencies.
Right.
And by emergencies, we mean, of course, a disagreement with Space Jesus over breakfast etiquette.
So let me get this straight. Space Jesus is laying down the law about toast, and Jeff's response is to whip out a cosmic easy-bake oven for human beings. Talk about an overreaction. What does he even do with this clone?
Oh, this clone, by the way, referred to as J2 in your files.
Right, J2.
J2 has a, let's say, more aggressive purpose.
Oh, no.
Jeff essentially unleashes J2 upon Space Jesus, and things, as they often do in Space Heaven, take a bit of a turn.
Let me guess. Things get messy, and by messy, are we talking spilled cosmic pints or something a little more, intense?
Let's just say J2 doesn't just engage in theological debate. The sources describe, a rather gruesome scene. Let's just say J2 dissipates Space Jesus.
Okay.
And if that weren't enough, proceeds to consume his brain and eat his legs.
Even for a story about a polystyrene spaceship and a toast-obsessed deity?
Yeah.
That's a bit much. It's like someone took a wrong turn at weird and ended up at, existential horror.
It's a jarring juxtaposition, isn't it? You've got the sheer absurdity of the setting, these characters, and then this act of, cosmic violence.
And it's all presented with this weird matter-of-factness.
Exactly.
So what about Jeff during all of this? Is he just, sipping his cosmic latte, watching from the sidelines as his clone commits, deicide?
Not quite, because it gets weirder.
Of course it does.
The sources indicate that after the, shall we say, incident, Jeff then merges with J2. creating an entity known as, and again, you can't make this up, Jeff Space Apple Jesus 2.
Jeff Space Apple Jesus 2. It's like a cosmic Mad Libs game gone horribly, horribly wrong. It's almost impressive.
Yeah.
But merging with your clone after it just committed space murder,
Right.
I'd need a stiff drink after that. And not necessarily at the Celestial Weatherspoons.
Yeah.
So what happens next? Do they just go about their day like nothing happened?
Surprisingly, yes.
Yeah.
After this, cosmic homicide and subsequent merger, we're told that they take a break.
Of course. Because when you've just committed it deicide by proxy and merged with your, homicidal clone, a little R&R is in order.
Yeah.
But this is Jeff we're talking about. So where does one even go on vacation after something like that?
That is an excellent question, and one that leads us to another fascinating chapter in this whole Jeff Apple saga. You see, while he's been off gallivanting in space heaven, engaging in his toast-related debates, merging with his clone, he's left someone in charge of things back on Earth.
And not just anyone, I'm guessing. Knowing Jeff, this is someone who perfectly embodies his own unique brand of cosmic chaos.
Indeed. Remember Sunderland,
Right.
that seemingly insignificant island?
Right.
Well, it turns out that before his adventures in space heaven, Jeff appointed himself protector of Sunderland.
Okay.
However, during his time away, his, let's say, former apprentice, a certain Scaramouche, made the somewhat questionable decision to leave Sunderland in the care of someone Jeff absolutely despises.
Oh, this can't be good. Who is this unfortunate soul tasked with filling the, shall we say, cosmically large shoes of Jeff Space Apple Jesus 2 as the protector of a random island?
None other than Normal Man.
Normal Man. You're telling me the fate of an entire island? An island previously overseen by a self-proclaimed Space Jesus 2 is left in the hands of someone named Normal Man. That's either brilliantly ironic or a recipe for disaster. So we've got Normal Man, just your average guy, suddenly in charge of Sunderland. Meanwhile, Jeff Space Apple Jesus 2 is off on his cosmic adventures, developing a strange aversion to toast along the way. You really can't make this stuff up.
It really highlights the absurdity of this whole thing, doesn't it? You've got this self-proclaimed cosmic entity, but he leaves the very real, the very mundane responsibility of looking after an island to, someone he considers completely unremarkable. Makes you wonder about his priorities.
It really does. But this is Jeff we're talking about, so there's got to be more to it, right? Why Sunderland? What's so special about this island that it needs his protection in the first place?
Yeah.
And why is he so fixated on Normal Man's, normalcy?
The sources, they're a bit vague on the why of Sunderland.
Right.
It's described as this place of natural beauty, a certain mystical aura, but the specifics, those are left to our imagination.
Maybe Jeff had this, deep connection to the island. Or, maybe he just liked the way it sounded. Sunderland. It's got a nice ring to it.
It does, doesn't it? It's like something out of a fantasy novel.
Right. And so, the great Jeff Space Apple Jesus 2, he cast his gaze upon the enchanted Isle of Sunderland and declared, "This shall be my domain."
Exactly. It's got that dramatic flair. And as for Normal Man, it seems Jeff's disdain, it boils down to a fundamental difference in, how they see the world.
Yeah.
Jeff sees Normal Man as, mundane, predictable, everything he seems to be rebelling against.
Which, of course, makes you wonder, what happens when this self-proclaimed deity, he comes back from his cosmic travels to find just a regular guy running the show? How did that go over?
Predictably, Jeff is not pleased. He returns to Sunderland expecting things to be, if not exactly the same, then at least with a bit more, shall we say, cosmic grandeur. Instead, what does he find? The island's a mess. Animals are restless, weeds are growing wild, and there's a distinct lack of, you guessed it, polystyrene structures.
So basically, Sunderland, in the hands of Normal Man, is like a cosmic garden party gone wrong. What does Normal Man even do? Does he, bow down, hand over control of the island?
Not quite.
Ugh.
Remember, Normal Man, he's nothing if not practical. He points out that, hey, Scaramouche put him in charge, Jeff's own apprentice. He was just doing what he was told, which, when you think about it, is a very Normal Man thing to do.
You got to admire his commitment to, normalcy. So what happens next? Is there a showdown? Do they arm wrestle for control of the island using their cosmic powers?
And this, unfortunately, is where the source material leaves us hanging.
Oh, come on.
We're left with Jeff feeling this sense of, responsibility to restore Sunderland to, let's call it its former glory, whatever that means. But what happens? Does he confront Normal Man directly? Does he unleash another clone? Does he build a giant polystyrene monument to himself in the middle of the island? We're left to speculate.
The ultimate cliffhanger. So we've gone deep down this rabbit hole. Polystyrene spaceships, toast-related disputes, cosmic cloning mishaps. It's been a wild ride. But after all of that, who is Jeff Apple? Is he a misunderstood visionary, a charismatic cult leader,
Mm.
or just a cosmic con man with a thing for DIY?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Throughout all of this, we've encountered a man of contradictions. He's capable of great ambition, but also shocking violence. He's prone to pettiness, easily distracted by the mundane, like a cosmic toddler with a dangerous set of toys.
He's Space Jesus too. But did he actually learn anything from his time in space heaven? Did he grow as a leader? Or is he still that same impulsive, maybe slightly delusional guy who decided to build a spaceship out of packing peanuts?
It's hard to say. We're left with more questions than answers. What were he and JP-17 Sr. working on? What made Jeff famous? What happens to normal man? And what does the future hold for Jeff Space Apple Jesus 2?
Maybe some mysteries are better left unsolved. Or maybe, just maybe, the real absurdity isn't the space cults or the polystyrene spaceships, but our own capacity for self-deception, our need to chase power no matter how trivial or cosmic it might seem. Sometimes the strangest stories tell us more about ourselves than we expect, even if it gets a little weird along the way.